What if I told you that everything you've ever imagined about spiritual awakening, the bliss, the constant peace, the magical floating through life, was a lie? What if I told you that awakening is not the finish line, not the happy ever after, but the beginning of something far more raw, more unsettling, and more powerful than you've ever been told? Most people picture awakening as the final chapter. They imagine that once they wake up, all pain disappears, all struggles dissolve, and they'll forever live in a state of cosmic euphoria. That fantasy sells well in books, movies, and even in the way some teachers describe it. But here's the shocking truth. Life after awakening looks nothing like the dream. In fact, it often feels like the exact opposite. Awakening doesn't let you escape reality, it throws you into it. The illusions you once lived by begin to shatter before your eyes. It's like wearing tinted glasses your whole life, only to have them smashed into pieces in an instant. At first, the raw light of truth is blinding. You see masks where you once saw authenticity. You see emptiness behind society's promises. You realize you've been moving through life half asleep, living someone else's story, not your own. And once you see it, there's no going back. This is why the first stage after awakening often feels less like enlightenment and more like collapse. You lose interest in the things that once drove you. Work feels meaningless. Conversations feel hollow. The goals you once chased, status, money, recognition, suddenly seem empty. It's as if you spent years building a house, brick by brick, only to discover the foundation was never real. And now the walls are crumbling, leaving you standing in the rubble asking, if all of this was a lie, then what's left? This is where most seekers panic. They weren't prepared for this part. Nobody warned them that awakening could feel like a breakdown. But listen carefully. What feels like collapse is not the end of your journey. It is the doorway to the real beginning. Because only when the false self falls apart can the truth of who you are begin to emerge. When the rubble of your old life settles and the fireworks of awakening fade, you find yourself in a place almost no one warns you about: the silence. At first, it feels anticlimactic, even wrong. You thought awakening would be a constant high, but instead you're left with stillness so deep it feels unnatural. It's like standing on the mountaintop in awe one moment, then being sent back down into the quiet valley the next. And in that valley, nothing spectacular seems to happen. Just ordinary life, just silence.
This is the stage that terrifies most people. They whisper to themselves, "Did I lose it? Did I fall back asleep? Why doesn't it feel magical anymore?" The mind, addicted to intensity, interprets the calm as failure. You start chasing the high again, meditating harder, reading more, repeating the same rituals that once gave you the spark. But no matter how hard you try, the fireworks won't return. And this drives many seekers into despair. Here's the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. The silence is not the loss of awakening. It is its next teacher. In fact, it's in the silence that the real transformation begins. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been terrified of thunderstorms your whole life. One day, you discover that thunder can't hurt you. The fear breaks. The next time a storm comes, your body might still react, but deep down, you can never be afraid in the same way again. Something has permanently shifted. That's what happens in the silence after awakening. Your old self, the one who lived for validation, who clung to ambition, who feared rejection, cannot come back. You may still laugh, cry, get angry, or feel lost. But the illusions that once controlled you no longer hold the same power. This unsettles the ego because it senses its grip loosening. That's why the silence feels so uncomfortable. It's not the end of awakening. It's the slow death of the false self. So if you're in that stage right now, if you feel empty, unmotivated, or disconnected, don't panic. You haven't lost awakening. You've stepped into the threshold where the old you cannot return, and the new you is still being born. And though it feels frightening, this threshold is the most sacred place you will ever stand. Because in the silence, the real awakening begins to take root. Here's the paradox most seekers never understand. When you feel like you've lost awakening, nothing has actually been lost. What's really happening is this. Your ego is dissolving, and it interprets its own death as failure. But in truth, that feeling of collapse is not the end of awakening. It's the beginning of rebirth. Think about climbing a mountain. The summit takes your breath away. The view is infinite. The air feels pure. Your heart races with joy. But you cannot live on the peak forever. Life calls you to descend. And the descent feels quiet, less glamorous, almost disappointing compared to the climb. Yet it's during the descent that the vision from the summit integrates into your bones. That's where you carry what you saw into the valleys of everyday life. Awakening works the same way. The loss you feel is actually the descent that anchors your freedom into the ordinary.
Of course, the ego hates this stage. It wants the fireworks, the grand highs, the dramatic revelations. It whispers, "You're doing it wrong. You've fallen back. You've lost the magic." And if you believe that voice, you'll start running in circles, forever chasing a spark that won't return. But if you pause and breathe, you'll notice something profound. You can never truly go back. Try forcing yourself into old patterns, seeking validation, chasing ambition, drowning in drama. Deep down, it no longer hooks you in the same way. The illusions have lost their grip. That shift is irreversible. And here lies the beauty of this so-called loss. It's not emptiness. It's not failure. It's the quiet space where your rebirth is happening. In this stage, you begin to sense a freedom unlike anything you've ever known. Life still throws challenges at you, but you no longer drown in them. Emotions still rise, but they pass through without defining you. You've moved from being trapped inside the story to realizing you are the awareness watching it unfold. So, the truth is simple. What feels like the death of awakening is actually the birth of embodiment. It's where awakening stops being a fleeting experience and starts becoming your way of being. This is the stage where you stop chasing truth and start living it. As rebirth takes root, the changes don't come in fireworks. They come in the quiet rewiring of everyday life. At first, it feels subtle. You wake up in the morning and the world looks the same, but something inside you no longer moves the way it used to. The old hunger is gone. The constant drive to prove yourself, to chase recognition, to squeeze meaning out of every moment. For the first time, you feel a strange freedom. The freedom of not needing to be more than what you already are, right here, right now. This freedom spills into your relationships. People around you still see the old you. They may still try to pull you into drama, arguments, or the endless cycle of competition. At first, this feels frustrating. You want to shake them awake, to show them what you've seen. But then you realize you don't have to. You don't need to convince anyone. Awakening is not something you can force into another person. Instead, your presence begins to speak for itself. Some will sense it and draw closer. Others will resist or drift away. And for the first time, you let that be okay. Even your experience of love begins to shift. Before awakening, love might have felt need, a way to fill the emptiness, to heal wounds, to prove your worth. After embodiment begins, love no longer clings, it radiates. You discover you can care deeply without trying to control. You can support without carrying someone else's burden. You can walk beside others without trying to walk their path for them. This is not detachment. It is freedom, and it is the purest love you've ever known.
Then there's ambition. The race that wants to find you begins to lose its power. Goals that once consumed you, status, wealth, validation, now feel strangely hollow.
Not because you stop acting, but because you stop resisting life. Work still happens, projects unfold, success may come or not, but none of it changes your identity anymore. You no longer measure your worth by what you accomplish. And that shift makes life feel effortless. Not easy, but effortless. Because when you stop pushing against reality, life begins to move through you with its own natural flow. This is embodiment, awakening woven into the fabric of ordinary living. Cooking dinner, walking down the street, sending an email. Suddenly, every act carries the quiet weight of presence. You realize you don't need fireworks to feel the sacred. It was always here, hidden in the simplest things, waiting for you to notice. Here is the part that shocks almost everyone. After awakening, life can feel strangely empty. You wake up one morning and realize there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove. The goals that once gave you purpose no longer grip you, and a voice inside whispers, "What's wrong with me? Why don't I feel motivated anymore?" At first, this emptiness feels terrifying, like the ground has fallen out from beneath your feet. But look deeper. This emptiness is not a void, it's a clearing. For the first time, your life is no longer cluttered with false urgency. It's as if the noise of the world has quieted, leaving a vast silent space. And in that silence, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice the simplest things as if for the very first time. The breath rising and falling in your chest, the way sunlight dances on a wall, the sound of the wind moving through trees. The ordinary reveals itself as sacred. The emptiness turns into fullness, not because it's filled with something new, but because you finally see it for what it truly is, freedom. And what about suffering? Here's the paradox. It doesn't disappear. Pain still arrives, challenges still come. You still feel loss, heartbreak, and grief, but they no longer consume you the way they once did. Before awakening, you were trapped inside the story, believing the storm was your identity, drowning in every wave. After awakening, you realize you are not the storm. You are the sky holding it. You feel the rain, you hear the thunder, but you know deep down you are safe. And that knowing changes everything. This shift doesn't make life painless, but it makes suffering powerless. You stop running from discomfort, and in that fearless acceptance, suffering loses its bite. It becomes another passing experience, intense, yes, but no longer defining. And in its place, a new kind of strength quietly arises, the strength of being untouched by whatever comes and goes. This is the ultimate paradox of awakening. What feels at first like emptiness reveals itself as the deepest fullness. What looks like loss reveals itself as freedom. And what once seemed like suffering transforms into a doorway to peace. This is not the bliss you expected. It's something far more profound. It's the discovery that the sacred has been here all along, hidden inside the silence, waiting for you to notice. And here we arrive at the final truth. After the highs have faded, after the silence has tested you, after emptiness has revealed its hidden fullness, you realize something extraordinary. Awakening was never something that could begin or end. What you called awakening was not a one-time event. It was your mind catching up to what your soul had always known. This is why so many teachers say awakening is both the most extraordinary and the most ordinary thing. Extraordinary because it shatters every illusion you once lived under. Ordinary because it brings you back to what has always been here. The sound of your breath, the taste of food, the way sunlight warms your skin. Awakening doesn't take you out of life. It drops you fully into it. Suddenly, the simplest moments feel sacred because you see clearly. The divine was never separate. It was always here, hidden in plain sight. The real miracle is not the moment you first woke up. The real miracle is the ability to stay awake in the middle of everyday life. To work, to love, to grieve, to celebrate, all while resting in the awareness that you are free. You no longer need to escape. You no longer need to perform. You no longer have anything to prove. This is freedom, not as an idea, not as a fleeting experience, but as the quiet foundation beneath everything you do. So if you're wondering why your awakening doesn't feel as intense anymore, let this truth settle in. You haven't lost anything. You've stepped into the most powerful part of the journey. The part where awakening stops being a story and becomes the way you live. Every breath, every step, every ordinary moment now carries the light of truth. This is the awakening that never ends. And if this resonates with you, don't stop here. Because in my next video, I'll reveal how to embody this awakening in your relationships, your work, and the hidden corners of your daily life. Trust me, it will change how you see everything. So hit subscribe and let's keep walking this path together.